Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. The Lenape also inhabited these lands at the time of the written treaties. We also acknowledge the Indigenous people who traveled these lands before the written treaties. Today, Chatham-Kent neighbors the Lenape at Elnapawi, Lackaweet, also called Delaware Nation at Moraviantown, and the unceded territory of Bakajwanong, Wapuu Island First Nation. Chatham-Kent continues to be home to diverse First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Chatham-Kent is covered by Treaty 2, the Detroit Treaty of 1790, Treaty 7, Sombre Township Treaty of 1796, and Treaty 25, Longwoods Treaty of 1822. We also recognize that this region is subject to earlier wampum agreements, like the two-row wampum and the dish with one spoon wampum. As beneficiaries of these treaties, we recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Please be seated. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. Rules of decorum at a council meeting. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect for differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councillors, staff, speakers, or fellow members of the public may result in removal from the premises. This also applies to deputations. We ask that you do not approach members if they are seated in the council seats. The public, unless invited, is not permitted to come into the gated horseshoe area. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. Mr. Mayor, this evening we have regrets from Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Wright, and we have Councillor Allen participating virtually this evening. Disclosures of pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, for open session agenda items. I have not received any. And deputations for this evening. One deputation was received with regards to item 13A, the Clearville Park Review, received from Wayne Ross, and it was email only. There were no deputations for Zoom or present this evening. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. We have two items that have been pulled from the agenda. The first one is the Clearville Park Review, has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi and Councillor McDonald. And the long-term financial plan has been pulled as a presentation by Gord Quinton, the Chief Financial Officer. Therefore, to be voted in one motion on the consent agenda are items 13B and C and items 14A.
Councillor Anderson and Councillor Thompson, can I get you to move the consent agenda? Actually, Councillor Story.
I am happy to move that.
Happy to second, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just trying to open up mine. All votes are in. And motion passes 15-0.
I will start item 13, Infrastructure and Engineering Services.
13A, Clearville Park Review.
Councillor Sakachi, go ahead.
Thank you, Kenneth. I'd like to move that administration be directed to refer the report back with options and recommendations that 1, prioritize critical infrastructure and operational needs of the park. 2, identify opportunities to improve operational efficiencies and maximize existing assets, including transient sites. 3, explore revenue-generating partnerships and investment opportunities. And 4, provide council with suitable options to support the long-term viability of Clearville while maintaining municipal ownership and operation. If I have a seconder, I can just kind of review my comments.
Councillor McDonald?
Yep, happy to second.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Sakachi.
Yeah, thank you. I was able to do a detailed tour with the folks yesterday, and they had a lot of great questions, a lot of great comments, and I really think that we have a potential to look at that asset and come up with a more creative approach than we currently have on the floor. Talking to staff, I think that we can find some commonalities in the situation. And you know, in watching some of the presentations that we've had recently regarding our asset management plan, I think that you know, Edward's team has really hit the nail on the head. If you don't invest in an asset, you lose the asset. So I think it's really important that we start to look at things differently. I know as a whole, there's a lot of individuals that feel that investing in nice-to-do things is not necessarily always the beneficial thing for our community, but I really think it's important to do nice-to-do things because our community deserves to be nice, and valued. So I'm hoping that we can look at different options to keep the park, and that's what this is saying, but also look at a more creative approach so we can ensure that it has long-term sustainability, and we can potentially look at phasing in the increases over a longer duration, as well as limiting some of the capital investments to make it more affordable for the folks out there. But I really think there's an opportunity for us to do things a lot better than we currently are. And I think that it's not speaking for him. I think Mr. Soldo's team's okay with this deferral as well, as it's not something that needs to be done immediately. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, I support Councillor Sakachi's motion. I think a lot of the users of Clearville Park are glad that we're not going to be divesting it at this point, and I think it's important to have a vision for the park, for the future users and the existing ones too. And glad to see that we're considering the phased-in approach as well, because I know there were some concerns over phasing it in over 5 years versus 10 or something different. So that's all. Thanks.
Seeing no other questions, I just want a quick comment as well. No, I very much agree with this approach. I think there's a huge opportunity out there. It's a wonderful park, and I think with the right investment and the right everybody looking at it in a creative way, I think we can make it even better. So thank you. With that, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-0.
Item 15, Finance, Budget, Information Technology, and Transformation.
15A, Long-Term Financial Plan. We have a presentation by Gord Quinton, the Chief Financial Officer, and his team.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the team that will be updating Chatham-Kent's long-term financial plan. Gord Quinton, CFO and Treasurer. Matt Torrance, Director of Financial Services. Brock Piddle, Manager of Corporate Accounting. Sean Hilderly, Manager of Asset and Quality Management. And myself, Steve Brown, Director of Budget Performance Services. Gord, Brock, and myself will be introducing the strategies, principles, and components of a long-term financial plan. Long-term financial planning is critical to ensuring the ongoing sustainability of our community. It provides a roadmap that helps us balance today's needs with tomorrow's responsibilities. Through long-term planning, we can proactively maintain and replace essential infrastructure, such as roads, water systems, facilities, and other community assets before they become costly issues. It also helps ensure that we can continue delivering the services residents rely on while adapting to changing needs and expectations. As our community grows, long-term financial planning allows us to identify future services and infrastructure requirements, understand the associated costs, and develop strategies to fund them responsibly. Most importantly, it supports financial sustainability by helping us manage risk, make informed decisions, and avoid placing an unfair financial burden on future generations. In short, it helps ensure that our community remains resilient, well-serviced, and financially healthy for years to come. A strategic financial framework is the first step toward a disciplined, long-term financial plan. It establishes a clear foundation for decision-making, aligning priorities and ensuring that short-term actions support sustainable outcomes. Especially in a complex organization, this early structure brings consistency and transparency across budgeting cycles, management, and council changes. The framework is built on 3 elements: financial policies, financial plans, and financial practices. Policies define the guardrails, plans translate those policies into forward-looking strategies, and practices drive day-to-day execution. In essence, policies inform plans, and plans direct practices, creating a connected system that reinforces sound financial management over time. Our core financial principles form the foundation of how we make financial decisions and guide our long-term financial plan. For the community, these principles translate into predictability, trust, and resilience. Compliance ensures that public funds are protected and managed responsibly. while accountability and transparency allow residents to see how financial decisions support services, infrastructure, and council's priorities. Sustainability helps stabilize tax rates and user fees by avoiding deferred costs and financial surprises, and flexibility ensures the municipality can respond to them, both opportunities and challenges as they arise. Collectively, these principles support a community where infrastructure is maintained, services are reliable, and financial decisions are made with both current and future residents in mind. A practical example of these principles in action is Chatham-Kent's budget and asset management processes. Multi-year operating and capital budgets are prepared in compliance with legislative requirements and council-approved financial policies, supported by long-term forecasts and the asset management plan. These budgets are presented publicly with reports, summaries, and council deliberations available to residents, providing transparency into funding priorities, tax impacts, and financial risks. Public consultation opportunities through council meetings, budget discussions, and published materials allow residents to understand and comment on financial decisions before they are finalized. At the same time, audit financial statements prepared in accordance with PSAB standards and reviewed by external auditors provide independent assurance of compliance and financial accountability, reinforcing the public confidence in how Chatham-Kent manages its financial resources. The purpose of the municipal budget isn't just an annual financial exercise. It really is the primary tool we use to deliver on council's long-term priorities and shape the future of our community. That means our approach has to go beyond a single year. We focus on multi-year planning and long-range forecasting so that we can balance two competing needs, maintaining the services residents rely on today, while also making room for new investments, and in some cases, difficult decisions on where to scale back. At the core of this approach are three guiding principles: affordability, accountability, and value for money. These principles ensure that every decision we make is grounded in a full understanding of the costs, not just the immediate impact, but also the ongoing operating implications, cash flow requirements, and long-term sustainability. We do this scrutinizing additions to the budget. For any new initiative or major change, we require a robust business case. This includes not only the financial implications, but also the expected community benefit, associated risk, and how success will be measured. Importantly, we also evaluate the risk of not proceeding, not just the risk of moving forward. This ensures we are making balanced, informed decisions rather than reactive ones. Ultimately, this entire framework is about ensuring that we direct our limited resources towards initiatives that deliver the greatest value to the community while maintaining long-term financial sustainability. In short, it's about being deliberate, transparent, and strategic in how we align funding with priorities. Chatham-Kent's revenue strategy is grounded in the principle that sustainable service requires stable, diversified, and predictable sources of income. The guiding principle of revenue framework emphasizes fairness, transparency, and alignment with service delivery. The municipality of Chatham-Kent, including the Public Utilities Commission, generated total revenue of approximately $538 million in 2025, with the primary source of that revenue being property taxes, which support core municipal services that benefit the entire community. At the same time, Chatham-Kent deploys a user pay principle where appropriate user fees, rates, and charges to recover the cost of the services that provide a direct or uneven benefit to specific users. This includes the Public Utilities Commission, where water and wastewater rates fund their own respective divisions. Development charges are structured to ensure that growth pays its appropriate share of growth, protecting existing taxpayers from subsidizing development. Senior government funding should be treated as an important but unpredictable supplement in the municipality's long-term financial plan, primarily supporting major capital projects and subsidizing specific services. A prudent approach requires conservative assumptions, alignment with funding priorities, and readiness to leverage opportunities without over-reliance on these uncertain grants. The revenue framework is supported by strong governance and long-term planning. Revenue decisions are integrated into the multi-year budget process, informed by economic trends, assessment growth, demographic change, and legislative constraints. The revenue strategy helps deliver predictable taxes, fair fees, and reliable services. By aligning revenue with benefits received, residents and businesses can better understand what they are paying for and why. Diversifying revenue sources reduces pressure on property taxes and improves the municipality's ability to maintain infrastructure, respond to emerging needs, and invest in community priorities.
The third core financial principle tonight is growth management, which is aligning the community growth with infrastructure capacity and long-term financial planning. Growth management is about ensuring that development occurs in a sustainable and financially responsible way. It helps align the pace and the location of community growth with the capacity of the municipality's infrastructure, services, and available resources. By coordinating land use planning, infrastructure investments, and long-term financial forecasting, growth management allows the municipality to anticipate future needs and make informed decisions about roads, water and wastewater systems, transit, community facilities, and other public services. This approach supports orderly development, helps avoid costly infrastructure shortfalls, and ensures that growth contributes to the community's long-term financial sustainability, while maintaining the quality of life for residents and businesses. Strong infrastructure builds a strong future. Smart capital investments today protect services, strengthen communities, and prepare the next generation, prepare Chatham-Kent for the next generation. Growth management decisions shape how communities evolve and how municipal services are delivered over time. By coordinating growth planning with financial capacity, Chatham-Kent seeks to support community vitality while protecting affordability and service sustainability. As you know, after a period of decline, recent years show strong population growth. As of July 2025, Chatham-Kent population was estimated at just over 113,000 residents, reflecting continued growth across the municipality. In fact, since 2016, Chatham-Kent has experienced population increase of over 8%, or over 8,500 additional residents. This growth is significant, particularly when viewed in the context of the previous decade, where population levels remained relatively stable or experienced periods of decline. This recent increase demonstrates that Chatham-Kent is an increasingly attractive place to live, work, and invest. Growth has been supported by a combination of factors, including housing development, economic opportunities, immigration, and communities' quality of life. While population growth brings many benefits, including a larger labor force, increased economic activity, and a broader municipal tax base, it also creates additional demands for infrastructure, municipal services, housing, transportation networks, and community amenities. Some of the recent growth was accomplished by infilling accompanied without major infrastructure investments or capacity improvements. That room's no longer really available, and that infrastructure improvements and expansion of capacity are needed to sustain this growth. Understanding the population trends is critical to growth management. Accurate population forecasting helps ensure that infrastructure investments and financial planning are aligned with future needs, allowing the municipality to proactively plan for growth rather than react to it after the capacity challenges emerge. Ultimately, these population increases reinforce the importance of coordinating land use planning, infrastructure delivery, and long-term financial strategies to ensure Chatham-Kent continues to grow in a sustainable and fiscally responsible manner. Here, you've seen this before. This is showing percent growth in communities in 2025. Chatham-Kent grew 1.2%, over 1.2%, representing the highest single-year growth rate recorded in more than 20 years since consistent population tracking began. This is a notable milestone and reflects the increasing appeal of Chatham-Kent as a place to live, work, and raise a family. As shown on the map, Chatham-Kent's growth rate exceeded that of many surrounding municipalities, as well as exceeded the provincial average during that period. The strong performance highlights that the municipality is not only participating in Ontario's broader growth trends, but growing at a pace that is outstripping many comparable municipalities in the region. A key driver of this growth is in-migration from elsewhere in Ontario. More individuals and families are choosing to relocate to Chatham-Kent, attracted by factors such as housing affordability, lower property taxes, our community investment plan incentives, employment opportunities, quality of life, and access to amenities. This trend is contributing to both population growth and increased demand for housing, infrastructure, and municipal services. These growth patterns reinforce the importance of proactive growth management. As more people choose to make Chatham-Kent their home, the municipality must continue to align planning, infrastructure investments, and financial strategies to support sustainable growth and maintain the high quality of services residents expect. Growth management. Chatham-Kent's growth management approach is guided by an integrated set of council-approved policy documents, including the official plan, the council growth strategy, provincial planning statements, the community improvement plans, and specific master plans. The long-term financial plan serves as a financial framework that aligns these policies with municipal capacity, affordability, and long-term sustainability. The official plan establishes where and how growth should occur, with an emphasis on directing development to designated settlement areas, supporting efficient infrastructure use, and protecting agricultural and environmental resources. The council growth strategy builds on this foundation by prioritizing population growth, economic development, and community vitality. And the provincial planning statement requires municipality to build more housing where it's needed, make land available for development, create opportunities for economic development and job creation, and plan for appropriate transportation, water, sewer, and other infrastructure needs necessary to accommodate current and future needs. The Community Improvement Plan, one of our huge successes in Chatham-Kent, provides targeted financial tools to support reinvestment, redevelopment, and intensification within existing communities. And master plans translate growth policy into actionable infrastructure and service delivery requirements. Plans such as the Water and Wastewater Master Plan, Transportation Mobility Master Plan, Stormwater Master Plan, Parks and Recreation Master Plan, Fire Master Plan, and Housing Strategy identify the infrastructure investments, service levels, and capital priorities required to support the anticipated population and employment growth. Chatham-Kent experienced a significant increase in residential development activity over the past decade, with annual housing units approved through building permits increasing from approximately 100 to 200 units between 2011 and 2018 to sustained levels exceeding 400 units annually since 2020. The municipality reached a record high of 690 units in 2021. This upward trend reflects growing demand for housing in Chatham-Kent and aligns with broader municipal objectives to attract residents, support workforce growth, and strengthen economic development. The increase in housing development also signals a corresponding need for municipal infrastructure and services to ensure new growth is supported in a sustainable and financially responsible manner. As new residential units are added, demand increases for water and wastewater capacity, transportation infrastructure, stormwater management systems, parks and recreation facilities, emergency services, and other municipal assets. Growth-related investments are therefore required not only to accommodate new residents, but also to maintain service levels for existing communities. The sustained increase in that growth is no longer a future planning assumption, but an active trend occurring across the municipality. Accordingly, growth-related infrastructure investments must be planned and implemented proactively to ensure development opportunities are not constrained by servicing limitations. Strategic investments in growth infrastructure will support housing supply objectives, facilitate economic development opportunities, and position Chatham-Kent to accommodate forecasted population growth while maintaining its long-term sustainability.
Chatham-Kent's asset management approach focuses on building effective, robust, and data-driven asset management systems, or AMS. This system supports responsible decision-making regarding the services provided to the public and the assets required to deliver those services. The AMS is guided by Chatham-Kent's Strategic Asset Management Policy, Provincial OREG 588-17, and the annual Detailed Asset Management Plans. A practical example of asset management planning in Chatham-Kent is the improvement of asset data to support informed evidence-based decision-making. Through the development of detailed asset management plans for community parks, the municipality completed a comprehensive inventory of park assets that had not previously existed following amalgamation. This work had provided a clearer understanding of the assets available to residents, their condition, and the resources required to maintain them. The enhanced data benefits both residents and the municipality. It improves public awareness of available amenities such as playgrounds and baseball diamonds, while also helping administration align service levels with available staffing and funding. By understanding what assets exist and what it takes to maintain them, Council can make more informed decisions that support sustainable service delivery and long-term financial planning. The life cycle of an asset requires ongoing capital investment to ensure the asset continues to deliver the intended level of service to the community. While the initial acquisition of an asset often represents the largest investment, additional funding is required throughout its life for rehabilitation, renewal, and eventually replacement. Regular capital investments, such as replacing major components, rehabilitating aging infrastructure, or upgrading equipment, help extend asset life, reduce operating risks, and avoid more costly failures in the future. By planning for these investments over the entire life cycle of an asset, municipalities can maintain service levels, maximize the value of public assets, and manage long-term financial sustainability. Over the next 4 years, the number on this slide will be adjusted based on master plans, budget allocations, disposal projections, and changes to levels of service. It bears mentioning that the Financial Accountability Office of Ontario indicates that the vast majority, and potentially all, of Ontario's 444 municipalities face an infrastructure funding gap. According to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, or AMO, roughly 45% of Ontario's municipal infrastructure assets are in a state of disrepair. Because own source revenues cannot fully meet these demands, municipalities are heavily lobbying the province for a consistent and predictable funding source to address this issue. Asset management planning provides the foundation for a long-term financial plan by identifying the future costs required to maintain, renew, and replace municipal assets. It helps council understand upcoming infrastructure investment needs, prioritize projects based on risk and service impacts, and make informed decisions about funding strategies. By integrating asset management planning with long-term financial planning, the municipality can proactively manage assets, avoid unexpected financial pressures, and ensure the sustainable delivery of services for residents both now and in the future. Two critical components of Chatham-Kent's financial strategy is our approach to cash investment and reserve fund management. Together, these practices ensure we protect public funds, maintain liquidity to meet our obligations, and generate stable, non-taxation revenue. Our cash investment strategy is built on a strong foundation of policy, legislation, and disciplined financial management. All investment activities are governed by Council's investment policy and comply with the Municipal Act 2001, Ontario Regulation 438-97. These frameworks ensure that everything we do prioritizes security and transparency. Our objectives follow a clear hierarchy. First, we comply with all statutory requirements. Second, we preserve capital. Third, we maintain sufficient liquidity. And finally, we aim to earn a competitive rate of return. Turning to reserve fund management, this is the long-term foundation of our financial health. Reserves are established for specific purposes and funded based on asset lifecycle needs, capital forecasts, and long-term planning assumptions. This ensures we're prepared for known future costs while remaining flexible for changing priorities. Importantly, reserves are fully integrated into our financial framework. They support the annual budget, capital planning, asset management plans, and long-term financial strategy. This disciplined approach ensures we maintain adequate funding for infrastructure renewal, replacement, and contingencies while minimizing reliance on debt. Effective reserve management has direct, visible benefits for the community. It allows us to plan and deliver infrastructure investment like roads, water systems, and municipal facilities in a stable and predictable way. This reduces service disruptions, avoids sharp tax increases, and lowers borrowing costs. It also ensures we can respond to unexpected events without significant financial strain. For taxpayers, it means smoother financial impacts over time, sustained service levels, and confidence that municipal finances are being managed responsibly. In 2025, Chatham-Kent generated $22.1 million in investment income through disciplined cash management, strategic fixed income investments, and the realization of gains on principally protected notes. Despite a declining interest rate environment, we locked in higher yields and generated $8 million in gains while fully protecting capital. This performance strengthened reserves, reduced reliance on borrowing, and created meaningful non-tax revenue, helping to moderate future property tax pressures for residents.
The last of our core financial principles to talk about tonight is debt management. Debt management ensures major community investments are financed responsibly, balancing today's infrastructure needs with long-term financial sustainability. Chatham's Kent debt strategy is grounded in a disciplined, long-term approach that emphasizes financial sustainability, affordability, intergenerational fairness, recognizing that while infrastructure investment is critical to growth and service delivery, financial decisions are equally important. Guided by the Municipal Act and aligned with the Asset Management Plan, Chatham-Kent prioritizes pay-as-you-go funding for lifecycle maintenance through dedicated levies and reserves, ensuring current users fund current services while minimizing interest costs and pressures on future budgets. We use debt for major investments that provide long-term benefits to the community. So choosing the right funding approach. Funding decisions are based on the type of investment and who benefits from it. So, important slide. This council endorsed pay-as-you-go for things like road rehabilitation, life cycle renewal, and routine infrastructure, and the use of debt, which shares cost over a period of time for things like new affordable housing, new major facilities, and growth-related infrastructure. Debt is used sparingly and only where it delivers clear value, such as a growth-related infrastructure and major strategic investment. This approach is supported by strong project prioritization, defining criteria for debt use, and prudent financial metrics to maintain sustainability and affordable debt levels. Recent examples, very recent examples, road rehabilitation, as you know, shaven paving and all the normal maintenance are done by a pay-as-you-go system. Well, a major facility like the 72-unit affordable housing build at 199 West Court in Wallaceburg was a perfect example of using both upper government funding and municipal debt to spread the cost over the generations that will benefit. Ongoing maintenance of both those projects is still funded annually within the operating budget, reinforcing the principle of aligning costs with use and preventing future financial pressures. Using the right funding tool for the right investment helps keep taxes stable, provide financial flexibility, and ensures today's decisions remain fair for future generations. The strategy supports stable taxes and rates, protects essential services, and ensures infrastructure investments remain affordable and timely. By prioritizing pay-as-you-go funding and strong reserves, it reduces long-term costs, preserves financial flexibility, and builds trust through transparent, responsible fiscal management. Our financial efficiency, particularly over the last decade, gives us the power to invest into our future. Funds available to borrow for investments in Chatham-Kent are up to $900 million based on provincial government policy, and that's based on 2024 financial results. As a result of Council's prudent decision-making and responsible financial stewardship, Chatham-Kent has maintained very low debt levels of debt while preserving this financial flexibility. These discipline, of course, we don't suggest that we're going up to this limit. Often there are other sources of revenues to fund debt payments, such as upper levels of governments. And the example of that was when we built Riverview Gardens, where 2/3 of the debt was paid by the province over the last 20 years. And development charges that are paid when a asset's developed and then the housing fills in over the next decade. Debt is perfect for those cases to align the debt charges with the funds coming in. So in conclusion, the updated long-term financial plan will be presented to Council in the first quarter of 2027. It's being updated because now it's our asset management plan exercise, and remember this presentation was meant to follow Sean's presentation at your last council meeting and sort of tie together. We now have real data. As Brock said, infrastructure gaps are across the province. It's in every municipality. Sounds like a scary number, but that's not to be a scary number, that infrastructure gap. It's what do you do moving forward? Lobbying upper levels of government, we finally have real data to do that lobbying rather than guesses, and consistent data across the province through the asset management plan regulations. So this will be a great foundation for the next council to build on. This will be delivered to them as part of their orientation in Q1 of 2027. To really have all the options on the table for them as they develop the next council's term strategic priorities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Story, followed by Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to all of you for that great presentation. I was going to ask, can you please do this at the beginning of next term for the next council? I'm glad to hear you're going to do that because this was very informative. I have a couple quick questions. The reserve piece, that's always a question that we talk about all term, and often one that I know I've had challenges describing to constituents because it's not always an obvious direct line to each one. Is there a legal or legislative amount for how much we must have in our reserves? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, there is no legislated. As Chatham-Kent, we started with $6 million in reserves, in a working reserve, because at amalgamation, the rest was given back to any municipality had a surplus. We've been successful in now building up these reserves to give financial flexibility. And I would say one of the things that you always need to look at is your reserves to debt ratio. Yes, our debt's we worked on paying off our debt for the last decade. Now we're in that, have that ability, because we did that, we now have the ability to invest in Chatham-Kent to deal with some of our aging assets and plan for the future. So those reserve to debt ratios will get more to that 1-to-1 ratio over the next term.
Okay, so you would, in your opinion, it would make sense if we had, so how much do we have in reserves right now? Do you have a general idea?
Approximately 300 million.
300 million. Then if I'm understanding what you just said correctly, then 300 million in reserves and 300 million in debt?
That would be we're better than ideal now, being that we have almost no debt. That would be the sort of sweet spot as far as auditors or anyone looking. There's lots of municipalities that have twice the amount of debt as they do in reserves. But that means, but 1-to-1 ratio is, I guess, what you would say is the ideal point. And remember, this also includes the PUC. So we're looking at some major projects over the next few years on the PUC side as well.
Okay, thank you. And those reserves, it's not just 300 million in one account, they're spread out. Like there's different uses for different departments, different projects, and we can't necessarily use a reserve for one account into another, because on one hand you're like, okay, we have 300 in reserves, why don't we take 20 million and chip away at the asset management gap that we have? But it's not quite that simple, correct?
It's not that simple, and a couple things to keep in mind. One, we talked about investment income on those reserves. If we're making a return that's greater than the construction inflation costs, we're doing well, and that's what we've been doing the last few years with our investment strategy. So we're able to provide more funding into annual budgets. There's substantial part additions in the last multi-year budget, so we'll be able to do much more in the next multi-year budget and invest more. Have those annual returns that will pay dividends to every resident in Chatham-Kent by not having to raise taxes as much as otherwise.
So when we start next term, when there is a new council in place, will you be reviewing all of that with them? Because I know
Absolutely.
I know a question I've gotten throughout this term has been, well, you've got that much in reserves, why aren't we spending it? And it's not quite that simple, is it? But I often have struggled to answer that effectively because it does seem like a large amount, and we do have roads we want paved and bridges we want repaired and that kind of thing. So I think maybe there's an easier explanation to share why we wouldn't just automatically use some of that to fund that type of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While the number has grown, you always have to look at it in comparison to what type of municipality we are and all the services that we supply as a single tier with the geography that we have. About half of those funds are reserves that are building up so that we can afford some of those pay-as-you-go items. Good example, the Third Street Bridge in Chatham, you know, I don't know, $12 million project, whatever it was. That's a whole year of bridge funding almost, just in that one bridge. So we had, you know, so some of it's building up for that large, massive bridge. And we have several more of those massive bridge crossing the either Thames or Sydenham River that are upcoming in the next few years that will need that $10-20 million spend in one shot. So that's, you know, and that's for parks and everything, arenas. They save up for a floor replacement every few years and on and on. So that's, like I say, about half of its infrastructure. The other half, there's a couple mandated reserves, but the majority of it is council-directed reserves for various items. You review it annually as part of the budget process, provided the targets of where they'll be at the end of the multi-year budget, and are ultimately up to council whether that's still a priority, what the money was set aside for, or whether there's changes to be made to the plan.
Thanks, Gord. So maybe I'll ask one more question. The reasonable way to maybe explain it from a personal level, I'd like to buy a new vehicle. I don't have the money I need quite yet. I'm going to save up essentially for a certain number of years till I have enough money to buy the new car, and then I'm going to use that money in that account to buy that new car or replace my old car or what have you. So just a relatable example in our own.
It's relatable, but often that decision would be a combination of some of reserves that you have in your bank account and perhaps some debt as well. Reasonable debt. You don't put 20-year debt on a car that's only going to last 10 years, for example. And those payments need to be affordable in your budget. So it's that balance. And really, to the car example, are you buying a $70,000 car or a $40,000 car? Because if you're basing what you're buying based on between your reserve balances, what's in your bank, and other costs that you have, and your ability to borrow where you're at. And that's what council's decisions are. You know, what is reasonable, and you know, in light of growth as well.
Thank you.
Are you almost done?
I just have one quick one.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the flexibility. The 22.1 million in non-tax revenue, where does that go? And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have a budget for interest income. That's one of the things that lowered the tax increase over this term. There was a substantial increase in that. Now that we've further developed this financing strategy, there'll be further additions to revenues, non-tax revenues, which is what everybody wants, in the upcoming budgets. That'll again lower the tax increase that we need.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Well, gentlemen, that's a very rosy economic picture you've painted. So I'm just one of the people at home must wonder why their taxes keep going up year after year. But that's that. Now, my question is, you talk a lot about growth and population growth in the municipality. So how do we know this? Like, you have a very specific number of 1.23% in 2025, but we just completed the national census like 6 months ago. So, for instance, I have 3 kids in the last couple of years. They've gone off to school and they didn't report that to anybody and nobody asked. So how do you have such a specific, without a census? Like, who's counting?
So I'm going to turn it over to Bruce for a better answer, but that census is once every 5 years, right? And so there are interim estimates done.
So this is an estimate, not fact.
Yes, but I'll let Bruce talk to, because those populations came from one of Bruce's staff's report.
Yeah, so each year annually in July, StatsCan does release a projection of what the growth in population is. But you're right, the census happens every 5 years. And the first tranches of that data will come out early next year in terms of the next census. But they're pretty accurate projections that they do on an annual basis. So.
well, pretty accurate, 1.23% in 2025. I'm just stating what you guys just told us. Like, I'm just curious, that's not a real number then. That's a projection, it's a guess.
That's StatsCan.
Well, they're guessing, not you.
They're-
They're
yes.
guessing. Okay, so it's a guess. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Through the mayor, some of Councillor Story's questions touched on what I had written down, but I guess I will just ask the question, Gord, how would you respond to what sometimes we commonly hear from residents or constituents when they say, don't take on more debt, pay off your debt as quick as possible and try to have no debt? Is that similar to when people say, you know, don't rush to pay off your mortgage if you're not saving for your retirement? Or like, what kind of more local analogy can we give? And what's the risk to us if we choose not to take on any debt?
I guess an analogy, perfect one that people can relate to is a house purchase. Young family just into the workforce, maybe have saved up enough for a down payment. You could continue to save and pay cash for that house, but it might take you 20 years before you're able to afford that house. Is it better for part of the intergenerational equity to have that larger house when you have the growing family and actually need the space, rather than save money all your life to have the full payment in full when you're about to retire? And in a personal example, of course, there's a limited lifespan. Municipalities don't have that limited lifespan. We're always going to be here, one shape or another. We're always here, and we're always growing. So we have to or that's sort of an example for people to understand. This council has made lots of decisions on issuing debt. It just hasn't happened yet because debt is issued when the project is completed. So the Wallaceburg housing project, for example, it'll be late 2028 before the next council actually issues the debt and starts the clock on a 20, 25, 30-year debenture on that project.
And is that like lifespan of the asset what helps guide staff as to whether or not we should be pulling something from reserves or we used the term like using debentures for it, right? Which really means we're going to borrow to get the projects done. Is there guidelines that staff have internally when they present to council on that?
Yes, mainly matching lifespan, but of course, but we're also not issuing 75-year debt on that housing unit. Let's say the lifespan's 75 to 100 years. At some point, it has to be reasonable, and there's maximums that we're even allowed to borrow. 40-year, off the top of my head, it's a maximum length of time that we even could borrow. And you just have to weigh the cost of borrowing. We have some. It's now been paid off, but we had some debt on our books that was at 10% interest that we inherited at amalgamation. And we have some debts that we issued back 20 years ago that are now paid off that were only at 2.5%. So you got to compare that cost, that carrying cost of debt versus what's the cost of waiting. For example, I know with Life at Chatham-Kent, we've talked about arenas about 4 or 5 times. You can go from, we could have borrowed $25 million in 2001 and had an arena. Now we're talking the $160 million for the whole complex in the Recreation Master Plan. So things change over time, and you need to weigh that cost of debt versus the cost of not building I guess the other part that's proven in the asset management plan, our assets are aging, and we can't let them all get old at the same time, or how could you possibly, we do have limits on what we can borrow and the payments on debt that we can make. So you got to keep up on your assets. our balance sheet is telling us now's the time to invest in Chatham-Kent and invest in many of our aging assets. The council decide how.
Great, and I will just put a plug in for the Capital Project Explorer that's in our budget tool, which is a really great way for residents to see all of the different projects that we're investing in all at once. Last question, thank you, Mayor Caniff. You mentioned a little bit about generating revenue from non-tax sources. So can you talk about what you mean by that, and if there are other non-tax revenue generating sources that could be in our future without it being user fees? Because I think outside of our taxes are a concern, user fees is another concern that we hear as council.
Yeah, correct. User fees are the next largest group, and that includes the PUC water and wastewater rates. User fees, of course, are the next highest one. Of course, ideally, back to upper level government grants, having predictable long-term permanent funding in place. We've talked at this council many times about the OCIF cap, for example. We're missing out on $19.3 million a year. What a change that would make in reinvesting into Chatham-Kent if we knew for the next decade we had that money coming in. But then there's the other non-source revenue. So our investment portfolio is one of them that we've talked about. But then there's that was the whole idea of the waste energy plant, was to even increase more on those returns above what we're making on our current investment portfolio, to have new revenues to displace the need for increased taxes. We need to keep on exploring any of those possibilities. Naming rights, all those types of non-tax sources.
Great, thank you for the presentation and for your responses to my questions.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you for that. I just want to kind of piggyback off of Councillor Harrigan quickly to better understand. So our healthy reserve versus debt gives us better borrowing power to get up to that $900 million should we ever need it. Is that correct?
Correct. We get most of our borrowing through Infrastructure Ontario, but to do that, it's not only that municipal debt limit and that $900 million that we flashed on the screen, but it's also the credit worthiness of a municipality, and do those that are lending us the money feel that we're confident? Are they confident that we can repay those debts? So the credit worthiness is very important, and with no debt or almost no debt on your balance sheet, you're really in the ideal spot to get the best rates you can.
Thank you. And then just so I can best understand, when we talk about not using the reserves and kind of going into debt, would that be like not pulling out of your RSPs to buy a car at 0% interest? Do you know what I mean? When you could finance it over 7 years at 0%. Is that kind of what we're talking about, the debt we take on? So we have a monthly payment rather than pulling out of our reserve.
That's absolutely correct. We're not just here one time. You could take $300 million, spend it on one project, gone forever. It's producing a annual income greater than the costs of inflation, but ultimately, some of those reserves, I do want to say, it's not that we want to keep 300 in reserves either. Some of that is building up for specific projects that are on the horizon. PUC reserves, for example, they've been building their reserves for the last 5 years to get ready for some massive construction projects that they're and capacity issues that they're faced with. So some of that reserve balances actually will be at least analyzed and that decision made. Do we, going back to the PUC, do they draw down half of their reserves and the rest goes to debt? They'll have to make those decisions on what's the best trade-off between having money in the bank versus the size of the debt that they're issuing.
Thank you. And is it fair to say that some of those reserves are similar to an RSP, while others you can pull from quite easily, like a tax-free savings? Is that fair to say, and that's why we have it invested that way?
Yeah, yes. Independent of the amount in reserves, we take an investment strategy. We know we're not pulling all the money out in 1 year. So some of our investments are a 5-year investment or so. So we're strategically making sure we have enough money available for that cash flow for the projected spending. You know, if there's a major PUC plant in 2028 or something, like, we got to be able to predict when in advance when will we need those funds. More like your tax-free savings account, you draw it out real quick. And but we do have liquidity in all our investments, and anything could be cashed out if there was a reason to do that.
All right. Thank you very much for this presentation. I know I have endless conversations with all three of you trying to wrap my brain around this, because I definitely appreciate the work that you guys do and in how you invest our money and utilize taxpayer dollars in any funding that we get. So thank you for the presentation.
Councillor Sakatchi?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth, through you. Gordon, in preparation for your presentation, I read through the BMA study a little bit, talking about like our debt load, just some copy and paste here that, so it's significantly below the average. The average is 686 per person. Ours is around 181. So one thing that I've always had a hard time with, I'm always, open to asking questions that I don't understand, and there's two of them. So when we're looking at inflation, a lot of people look at their taxes and they say the inflation. So the inflation this year is, let's say, 3%, but our taxes have went up 5.8. A lot of people don't discuss the pressures of construction inflation, as well as raw materials, roads, those types of things that we're paying, equipment and all that. So I know that when we're borrowing money, generally speaking, lesson 101 from you, my first term was, it's supposed to be used for like a capital projects. But when do we, from a debenture standpoint, look at if the inflation of roads, for instance, I'll give you an example, Mayor Caniff's motion for the gravel road conversion. So we're actually borrowing money. So if we're borrowing money, let's say we're borrowing it at 4% because we have an excellent credit rating, but the inflation over the next 10 years of that gravel, the cement, the asphalt, the bridges are actually like 10, 12, 13, 14%. That's actually compounding. Wouldn't it make more sense if we gauge the economy better to say, I know it might be for operational or life cycle. Do you ever take that to scale? Because I know generally when we're having budget discussions, it's all about capital expenditures, one-time funding, those types of things. And I've never really understood that, with knowing that how much, especially through COVID, how much our materials and work went up.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So for operating costs, you definitely never want to borrow, because you have the operating costs next year too. And so now you've added debt charges on top of that operating cost if you paid for this year's operating costs with debt. So, but for the life cycle replacement of, replacing a bridge down a certain road with the exact same bridge, we did have to borrow as Chatham-Kent in our early years, because we didn't have anything in reserves, and we had bridges at the brink of failure. So that's why the councils of the day targeted getting to the stage which we've been in the last decade, where we're on a pay-as-you-go on replacing an asset with the exact same asset, just a new, replacing an old bridge with a new bridge. But if you're replacing that old 2-lane bridge with the 4-lane bridge because you're expanding the highway because of the growth in the new subdivisions happening, that's a different type of asset, because you might have a quarter to half of the cost put aside in reserves that we're building in your life cycle reserves to replace the narrow road, but now you're building something for the next generation for all those houses that are going to be built in that certain area when you're widening the road. So that's the idea of really strategically using your debt at the right time, basically saving your capacity to use it when in times like right now when growth is happening all over Chatham-Kent and our capacities get running out quickly. So if you use that on, if we had already had $400 million of debt on our books just to spread those pay-as-you-go things that we have over 10 years, you're basically just adding interest on top of those costs, and it keeps on spiraling out of control, and you wouldn't have the capacity to grow as a community, which we do now.
Thanks. Just two quick questions. The second one would be, looking at the numbers now, if we decided not to take on any more debt, we would essentially, I'm just paraphrasing, around 2 years be debt-free essentially.
Yeah, we have about, for tax-based debt, we have about $4 million of debt at the end of this council term on the books. It's scheduled payments over a 4-year period, but in the grand scheme of things, comparing in the BMA study, we're basically, we're pretty well debt-free right now. There's just a few million.
You can just say that one more time though, if you don't mind?
We're basically debt-free.
Okay, just because some of the narrative that it's out there right now is the exact opposite of that. So I think it's important for that sentiment to be said, yeah. And then this last question for me is that where I do have a little bit of a hard time understanding is we don't have to go back to the discussion about the governance regarding the PUC. But when we're doing like our asset management plan, when we're doing the infrastructure gap, we're including PUC infrastructure in there, where it gets really confusing when you see this massive number, when a lot of that money and that monetary aspects isn't actually tax-based funded. It's user rate funded. And I'm just trying to, I don't want to CFO, but just a common answer in regards to, like, why are we including an asset that's not technically ours in these? Because it does balloon the number, and it's not related to actual task asks in the future.
A couple of reasons. Only a PUC can't borrow. Only a municipality can borrow and then lend that money to the PUC for water and wastewater projects. So it's on our balance sheet. It's on that provincial debt limit of the $900 million. That's calculated with PUC rates in that calculation and PUC debt levels. So the province is looking at us as a whole. They're not dividing it up. Now, things like the BMA study slice and dice it and split out debt between water, wastewater debt and the municipal debt to get that dollar cost per resident in each of those. But it's basically due to legislations where we have to combine it. It's all one of our financial statements. But there's also legislation on the PUC for example, that water rates need to pay for 100% of water costs. Prior to Walkerton, there was the opportunity for taxes to subsidize rates or rates to subsidize taxes. It was sort of a free-for-all. That's no longer the case since Walkerton and the lack of investments that were made in water systems prior to that. So since the Walkerton tragedy, it's legislated that those water rates pay for all water costs, including the debt.
Seeing no other questions, I just want to make one quick comment as well. I think council should be very proud of themselves collectively that the strong balance sheet that we're passing to the next council, that it allow them a lot of opportunities for strategic investment and strategic direction. So thanks for council for over the last 4 years for us putting together such a strong balance sheet moving forward. With that, we'll move on to notice of motion. I've got 5 of them. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Scotchy, Councillor Hall, Councillor Harrigan, and Councillor C. McGregor. So I'll go in that order. Councillor McDonald, go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. I, Councillor McDonald, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the August 10th, 2026 council meeting for discussion and voting. whereas administration is undertaking a review of user fees and the consistent application of council-approved fee policies, and whereas the First Ridgetown Scout Group and the IODE Ridgetown Confederation Chapter have historically used the Ridgetown Rotary Youth Center at no cost for their programs and community activities, therefore be it resolved that administration be directed to negotiate agreements with the First Ridgetown Scout Group and the IODE Ridgetown Confederation Chapter to formalize their continued use of the Ridgetown Rotary Youth Center at no cost, consistent with their historic use of the facility, and that such agreements be executed by the General Manager, Infrastructure and Engineering Services, subject to the satisfaction of the Director, Legal Services.
Councillor Scotchy, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you. Councillor Anthony Sagachi, here provide notice that I'll be bringing the following motion for voting and discussion on the August 10th meeting of Council. That Council discuss areas of concern for potential placements of additional CCTV cameras and direct administration to investigate areas of concern by Council and residents and report back on potential locations where the installation of CCTV cameras may provide significant public benefit, including but not limited to Erio and Mitchell's Bay and areas that experience a large influx of people and continued vandalism for discussion. Be it resolved that administration / CK police present available options, estimated costs, funding opportunities, and any privacy or operational considerations for council review and discussion.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you. I, Councillor Aaron Hall, hereby provide notice that I'll bring forward the following motion at the August 10th, 2026 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas a priority for this term of council is to improve sustainable mobility and to integrate a complete streets design into all right-of-way projects, and whereas a sustainable mobility master plan focused on cycling, transit, pedestrian accessibility, and roadway infrastructure is underway, and whereas several rail crossings exist in the community of Wallaceburg and have not been used for rail in several years, and whereas a rail crossing on Dufferin Avenue was paved over during a recent road rehabilitation project, and whereas community members in Wallaceburg have expressed concern about the condition and usefulness of rail crossings across the community, therefore be it resolved that administration be directed to present an open session report to council on the number of rail crossings in Wallaceburg, their condition, and the cost to remove them. Furthermore, a status and property standards update on the rail bridge over the Sydenham River in Wallaceburg be included in the report, and furthermore, administration be directed to prepare a presentation in closed session to the new council about the history and current status of the rail system throughout the community of Wallaceburg.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Harrigan, hereby give notice that I will bring forward the following motion for debate and discussion and voting at the August 10th council meeting. Whereas across the province, renovations to existing rental properties can result in the loss of necessary forms of attainable rental housing for families, particularly the reduction of multi-bedroom rental units. And whereas, as part of Council's decision to pass a rental renovation license bylaw, Council directed administration to pursue advocacy efforts with the province, recommending a province-wide approach to reducing renovictions. And whereas not all renovations that could result in displacement of families from multi-bedroom rental units would be an inappropriate renoviction, but may still result in the loss of attainable housing options for Chatham-Kent citizens. And whereas Chatham-Kent Municipal Council is not fully in control of decisions related to conversion or renovation of rental units due to the powers conferred by the province on the Landlord-Tenant Board and the Ontario Lands Tribunal. Now therefore, Council direct administration to pursue advocacy to the province, seeking a provincial-wide strategy to avoid the loss of multi-bedroom rental properties to help ensure ongoing availability of these attainable rental housing forms.
Councillor C. McGregor.
I hereby bring notice of motion to come to the August 10th meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas the Allo Stonehouse or Lou Stonehouse pedestrian bridge in the community of Wallaceburg has been vandalized for the second time this year, resulting in significant damage to the electrical infrastructure that operates the bridge and renders the lift span inoperable. And whereas repeated acts of vandalism against critical municipal infrastructure result in increased costs to taxpayers, disruption to public access, and impact to community events and services. Now, therefore, be it resolved that administration be directed to prepare a report outlining options, costs, and recommendations for enhanced security measures at the Lou Stonehouse pedestrian bridge following the repeated incidents of vandalism, including but not limited to improved surveillance, access controls, lighting, intrusion detection, physical security enhancement, and any other measures deemed appropriate to protect the critical municipal infrastructure, and further that the report include estimated costs associated with the recent vandalism, anticipated repair timelines, potential funding sources for both repairs and any recommended security enhancements, and any operational impacts resulting from the bridge being out of service, and an estimated timeline for returning the report to council for consideration. And I hope when it comes back for discussion that I can pull a couple of those things because it's been repaired by the time I get back here in August. So thank you.
Okay, we'll go to closed session reports. Councillor Hall and then Councillor McDonald. Can I get you to second those?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Confidentiality in closed session meetings. Closed session meetings of council are held to discuss sensitive matters such as legal issues, personnel matters, or property negotiations. These sessions are governed by strict confidentiality to protect the interests of the municipality and individuals involved. Council members and staff are legally and ethically bound to maintain discretion, and any disclosure of information discussed in closed session may result in penalties or legal consequences. I have 3 reports, Mayor Caniff. Closed session report from Monday, June 22nd. Council received information on labor relations or contract negotiations with regard to EMS contract adjustment, Section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act, labor relations or contract negotiations with regard to fire response in Wallaceburg, Section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act. Council directed administration on proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase PIN 009381076 2nd Street, Erie, Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act. Litigation and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege with regard to OLT Appeal 49 Taylor Ave, Chatham, Section 239(2)E and F of the Municipal Act. Closed session report from Monday, July 13th, 2026. Council directed administration on proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase PIN 009381079 5th Street, Community of Erie, Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act. Proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase PIN 009381080 Sampson Street, Community of Erie, Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act. Proposed disposition of land by the municipality and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege with regard to properties in Bothwell, Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act. Proposed acquisition of land by the municipality and a position plan procedure or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by or on behalf of the municipality with regard to strategic future land needs, Section 239(2)C and K of the Municipal Act. And finally, closed session report from today, Monday, July 27th, 2026. Council directed administration on litigation and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege with regard to OLT Appeal 9 Sarah Crescent, Chatham, Section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act and Section 239(2)E and F of the Municipal Act. And I so move, Mayor Caniff.
And I'll second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Allen? All votes are in. Motion passes 15-0.
Communication items, Councillor Doyle and Councillor Juvenville. Can I get you to move those, please?
Move those.
And so seconded.
Any questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Non-agenda business. Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we ran out of time at our last meeting, so the time frame's a little shorter for this, but I wanted just to flag for folks that the ERO, the Environmental Registry of Ontario, posting for the anaerobic digester waste disposal project with Municipality of Chatham-Kent and Greenfield Global has been reopened for an additional 30 days because there was discrepancy in the ERO posting, which was brought to their attention. So just as a quick recap for that, the facility is now propose to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, while receiving waste and truck traffic between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m., 7 days per week. So it's been open for, it was open, an additional, reopened for an additional 30 days, starting June 29th. Unfortunately, we weren't at council for me to flag that, so it closes July 29th, which is in 2 days. So hopefully, if you have any other comments that you may not have been able to share the first time, it is back open for public comment until July 29th on the Environmental Registry of Ontario website. Thank you very much.
Mr. Taylor, is there anything you want to clarify with the ERO or this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Dave Taylor, Deputy CAO, one of the staff working on this project. Yeah, so I think the wording in the ERO posting does describe it as reopen, but it's really a bit an extension of time is what's happened here. So there is that opportunity, as Councillor Story summarized, for citizens to provide their comments through that posting. And there was, I think that the way that it's described on the posting is that there were clarification of the hours of operation and the type of waste disposal site. And so the ministry made the determination that they wanted to leave that period of time open for further comment from the public. So certainly that period is open, and as Councillor Story indicated, until July 29th.
Thank you. I'm literally reading what the MEC sent me. So I'm not trying to editorialize, I'm just reading what was sent to me. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and I just wanted to send out an invitation to all of council and all of the communities that the weekend before our next council meeting is Wambo in Wallaceburg, so the Wallaceburg Antique Boat Motor celebration that we have had. I think we're heading into, and Councillor Hall can correct me, I think we're heading into year 31 in our community. It's the biggest event that happens within our community in the summer, and it's always great. There's so much entertainment, things to do. And I do hear, if you have children or whatever, we do have it's an animated, it's a Raffi experience that is going to be happening in the park early on Saturday morning, which should be a really neat and different addition to Wambo this year. But so if you're out and about and around, great time to come to Wallaceburg. Thanks.
Councillor Juvenile.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just have two questions or issues that I just seeking further information or clarification on. I've been contacted by residents of Dresden on two separate issues. The first one is just there are homeless individuals living in Dresden, so a lot of people have been reaching out with concerns. So just wondering if we can get an update on how the homeless issue is being addressed in Dresden, and confirmation that there are no suitable locations in Dresden for any type of encampment. So that's the first question I have. I think.
So,
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Jody. One more question for people. If the situation presents itself again, what is the best, what should people do if they have questions or concerns? What's their best method of communicating what their concerns are?
Mayor, please direct any concerned residents to contact 311 so that we can log the information. We can track the information, and the information gets sent directly to the staff so that we can appropriately action that information. So if we could ask people to contact 311, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Oh, my goodness, sorry. Jody. Sorry, it's not even a long meeting. Okay, thank you, Jody. My second question, I have been contacted by different individuals from Dresden who indicated that trucks, as in like tractor trailers with a cube trailer and tanker trucks, were driving through Dresden. Again, this is all secondary information coming to me. They potentially were York 1 trucks. I don't know if that's been confirmed or anything. And they were speeding. So I guess their questions and concerns are maybe wrapping around the knowledge previously that we were informed that there were proposed truck routes from York 1. And none of those truck routes had indicated that they would be coming through Dresden proper. So people are just reaching out asking, are these trucks going to be going through Dresden? Were they York 1 trucks? And I didn't really have any answers, so.
Mr. Dubin, go ahead.
Yeah, perhaps I can address that. So the report that there were some trucks in Dresden was brought to my attention. We sent out folks from our bylaw, our building enforcement group, and they didn't see any trucking activity happening on the York 1 site at all. They will be heading out there again tomorrow to just make sure. So it's hard to speculate. We also checked with CK Police, and they didn't have any other complaints from anyone that there are any traffic concerns in Dresden with speeding trucks or stuff. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It's just unfortunately we don't have enough information to be able to identify it. So I would just encourage anyone, if he sees vehicles speeding through any community, not just Dresden and not related to York 1, please call the police, or at the very least take note of what kind of vehicles and what time, because we do have the ability in some cases with CCTV cameras to at least try to track that down. So I can tell you there doesn't seem to be any evidence that anything was heading to York 1. I also saw one of the reports which indicated that the trucks were unmarked, so that doesn't help either, because then we have that's not the person's problem, but we have no way of telling for sure. So I would just urge the public, if somebody's breaking the law, call 911. If you're looking for information that is not sort of urgent in nature that the municipality will have, then certainly call 311. We are continuing to monitor the York 1 site for any activity that's contrary to any uses that they're not allowed to perform. And if that happens, certainly council will be made aware, and then we'll be seeking direction from council as to what steps to take. So I agree with the councillor. It may very well be that I believe last week there was a newspaper article that talked about how many trucks may be seen through Dresden. So perhaps when somebody saw some trucks, they thought, geez, this has already started. So that's possible. But if any more information is out there, or CK Police has confirmed they're happy to look into it further.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two things. First, we're very excited that the Hogs for Hospice has decided to put Wheatley back on their route for this weekend. We're looking forward to welcoming about 2,000 motorcycles into the town square on Saturday. They'll be there between 12 and 4. So please come on out. You'll never see anything like it in your life. It's amazing. And I want to thank all the volunteers that have put that together, and that cross collaboration between the municipality of Leamington and Chatham-Kent that has made this possible for us. Secondly, a good friend of mine, the Grand Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation, Linda DeBosque, I was having conversations with her about the fires that they had experienced and the devastation that they had in one of their towns called Nami. And through our conversation, and not in my council role, but in my nurse's role, I took a flight there and was able to go with the community back into their town for the first time. And I just want to bring to light the, yes, devastation, but also the amazing resilience and the spirit of those people and the strength that they give and their outlook on their future and on their past and wanting to preserve both of those things. So, Skoden and Miigwech.
Okay, we'll move on to reading of the bylaws. Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Krug, can you do the first and second, please?
Happy to move.
Second?
Any questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Third and final reading, Councillor McGrail and Councillor Finn, please.
I will put forth.
Seconded?
Any questions? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll move to the resolution of council, and we're going to have someone who's the birthday boy today. He'll wrap it up, and this is in lieu of us singing happy birthday to you. So,
So moved.
to the not singing to you? Is that Councillor Hall, go ahead.
Thank you. I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, August 10th, 2026, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
Seconded.
So we're happy to make it a special meeting just for you. All right. Anyone opposed to wrapping it up? Seeing none, have a great evening, everyone.